It's not just enough to have enough of stress of COVID-19 craziness, but then technology drives us crazy too, huh? So, okay, so my name is Lori Conlon. For those of you who don't know me, I am the director of the Office of Postdoc Services at the OITE. So the Office of Intramural Training and Education is based out of the National Institutes of Health, or the NIH, and our job is really for intramural training, but we're so excited during this time to open up our offerings to tons of people from around the country. Right now, we're looking at about 623 of you are online, plus or minus a couple. So we're really excited to have you. Today, we're going to talk about job searching and strategies to find your career. It's an interesting time to have this talk, right? And so let's start with this elephant that's in the room, although I have never quite figured out why it's the elephant in the room and not some other animal. But this elephant in the room, this time, it is really weird, right? We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the job outlook looks like. I keep trying to look into my crystal ball and understand what's going to happen to hiring once we're all back to work. And we just don't know. I do know that I have done a couple of job negotiations this past week, helping people navigate jobs. I do know that a couple people have had interviews during this time. I do know that jobs are still posting. And I do know that the one thing you can control during all this craziness is your preparation. So even if you're not looking for a job today, even if you're not looking for a job for the next 6 or 7 months, you still can be prepared and understand how job searching works and kind of understand what you're looking for in a career. So that I understand that this is a crazy time, but we're going to all do the best that we can. All right. So I'm going to make sure that we're all good here. Fantastic. Okay. So, So I want to tell you a little bit about who I am. So I actually have my PhD in biochemistry and biophysics. I did the normal route for a postdoc, and I was a postdoc at Wadsworth Center, which is part of the New York State Department of Health, from 2002 until 2006. After that, I landed a job in New York City, and it was one of the most exciting times of my life, professionally and personally. So we moved to New York City, and I worked for the New York Academy of Sciences, which is a nonprofit organization, and I ran Science Alliance, which was their career development programming for about 2 years, actually just 2 years. And then I was recruited to come and work at the government, and I've been here since 2008. One of the things we get asked about often, especially for someone in my type of field who has the strong biochemistry background but has moved into career development for young scientists, is that, do you miss the bench? That's often one I get. And second one is, did you even need your PhD? And I want to give you a little bit of understanding of the fact that I think that my PhD was instrumental into me being successful long-term with my career. I use really similar skills in different ways from when I was doing research to the type of work I do now. So analytical and problem solving, right? So I just had to problem solve how to get online. Problem solving, understanding how to best develop a workshop for folks, gathering information, creating slides, being really analytical into what kind of information you guys actually need and what you don't. I think one of the best examples of the fact that I use my science skills, I do this workshop on conflict management for scientists. It's another one of my favorite ones to do. And I have taken bits of research around conflict management from about 17 different resources and kind of pulled them all together to really make it so that scientists will understand how to navigate conflict. And with that, it's the same type of skill that you would have used if I was trying to understand group 2 intron biochemistry, right? I'm going to go out, I'm going to look at all the data that's out there, I'm going to pull all that data together, and then I'm going to look how that data best can be presented. It's kind of like creating a review in some ways. So I use my skills all the time. There's also interpersonal skills. So the interpersonal skills that are out there, being in a lab, you have to work with others. You have to navigate relationships. You have to work with people you love and work with people you don't like. And so all those interpersonal relationships were really important to me, and I still use. Good communication skills. I'll never forget the first time I gave a talk as a scientist. It was pretty bad. And so those skills that I learned as a PhD student and as a postdoc to give talks have come in really, really handy now. And then tenacity, right? One of the coolest things about this is that about being a scientist is that we don't give up, period. Like we'll actually try and go through and, add 3 more microliters and hope the experiment works, right? And that tenacity of not giving up and continuing to build our skill sets and all of that kind of stuff is really, really important in any career path. And so I hope that I've kind of showed you that even though I don't pipette on a day-to-day basis anymore, I still use the skill sets as a PhD that I learned through my time as a graduate student and a postdoc. And then the last question always is, how did I get my job, right? That's always a good question. And I absolutely think networking is how I got my positions. I was very involved in the National Postdoc Association, and through my network through there, I heard about different positions, one being that New York Academy of Sciences position that I talked about. And also I had really good credentials. So I was really ready to know that, the sound stopped. Guys, I know the audio, it sounds like the audio system is not perfect today. I don't know at all what to do with that. I'm sorry. It sounds like we're having a lot of technical difficulties today. I'm going to continue on. If the audio continues to be poopy, we'll have to just reschedule. So I hear that some people say the audio has stopped. Can some of you still hear me? A lot of times it's also your own Wi-Fi connection. Nobody can hear me. Oh, yay. Okay. Thanks, Amanda. Great. Okay. So we're going to continue on. Northern Illinois says it's clear as a bell. A total Midwesterner. Thanks, buddy. I love it. All right. It's likely if your audio isn't working, it's very much likely that it is your Wi-Fi. Okay. Back to what we were up to. Oh, you can hear in Texas. I went to Texas. Great. Thanks, guys. I'm good. All right. So today's agenda, what are we going to do? We're going to talk about the critical elements of a job search. So the first is understanding why this is tough, absolutely tough. We're going to talk about that first. Next, we're going to talk about understanding the job search process. Next, we're going to talk about building your network and how to search productively. And the key to all of this is really being organized, being assertive, and being proactive, okay? So it's organizing all of your information. It's being assertive to get yourself out there and talk to people, and being proactive and not just hoping a job falls in your lap. Man, don't I wish that would happen, but I guarantee you have to really work. Finding a job is really, really much more work than we ever thought it was going to be. Finding graduate school, we understood how to do that, right? We went to undergrad. So going to graduate school, we understood how to do that. Finding a postdoc, if that's where you are right now, we understood how to do that. It's this next step that really is really tough, right? It's that next step that makes it to where people, it's a brand new world. You probably have never found a job like this before in your life. So I have some polls. I got really excited about polls today. So we're going to launch a poll here. So this is my first one. I want to know, how much are you guys actually job searching right now? Okay. So they're distributing the poll. Oh, it's not going. So I wanted to know, do you love job searching? Oh, it's not too bad. I have a few leads and I'm chatting with people. Do you search the internet hoping to find something? Or are you searching the internet and you're finding a rabbit hole of Netflix? I hate this and I'm just avoiding it. So it looks like about 60% of you were kind of going in the middle, are searching the internet and finding the same thing. And I hate this and I'm avoiding it. That seems like the biggest two that are out there. I'm not too surprised. This is definitely one of those things that is really, really tough. I found when my husband is also a PhD scientist, and when we looked for our first real positions, it was some of the most stressful times in our life and also stressful times in our marriage, because we were both looking for jobs. There was no control over the process, and it's just really, really tough. So this is some of the things I know that went through my head. I know I should look for a job, but, right, it's really stressful, and it triggers tons of other thoughts, right? Am I making the right decision? I was so worried when I left that I was making the wrong decision. You know, I'd been an active bench scientist at that point in my career for 12, 13 years. Was I really going to like something else? This was my husband's. I'll wait till I finish all my experiments and get my publication, and then I'll go get a job. Right. So I think, I laugh and I tease him that I think that he'd still be in grad school if I hadn't finished, because, you know, there's always another Western blot to run. Another one we often hear is, my contract isn't up yet. It's not time for me to go. The one interesting thing about that, especially for postdocs who are in the room and postbacks as well, is that you can leave at any time. If you get a job and you get the right job, you can leave at any time. Maybe I should leave the bench. Maybe I shouldn't. You know, there's a lot of us that have that kind of inner challenge. I like what I'm doing. Why do I have to do something else? Or I hate what I'm doing, and will I actually like anything else? You know, these are some of the questions that I definitely had. If you guys are struggling with other questions, go ahead and throw them in the question box. I'll happily look at those. It is such a stressful time of our life, and I think we don't give ourselves enough credit for how stressful this can actually be. So one of the things I think with this is kind of understanding a little bit of cognitive distortions around here. So one thing with cognitive distortion is definitely thinking errors. And these are the ones that fit me mostly. I'm wondering if they're the ones that fit you. Overgeneralization. One negative event means everything else is going to be negative. You know, I bombed an interview. I'm going to bomb every other interview. Mental filtering, which is you dwell on the negative and forget all the positives. This is one we definitely see often in our office when folks are getting interviews, but they're not quite landing the job. They get really discouraged and start mental filtering that they're never going to succeed. Even though they're getting the interview, all the positive is they're getting the interview. And they tend not to remember that. Also, the last one here is jumping to conclusions or fortune telling, you know, thinking about all the negative outcomes. I'm never going to get a job. Why do they want me? I don't have the right experiences, all the rest of that stuff. And so we put up this defense mechanism, at least I do, I think so. So you put up this defense mechanism to just avoid it all, right? You just want to avoid it because you're worried that, you know, you're putting yourself out there and letting other people kind of see who you are. And I think the other hardest part about this whole thing is you have zero control over this process. Zero control. And so if some of you are like me, that's really tough because I like to know what's happening next. And at this point, you don't know who else the competition is. You don't know, exactly what they're looking for. And so it's really hard during this process, and we tend to go into these. So here's a couple of coping mechanisms I'd like to share with you. One is to make sure you're breathing through all of this. And I think the other thing is the one thing you can control during this process. You can't control COVID. You can't control whether or not you get an interview. You can't control lots of parts of this. But what you can control is understanding the process and being prepared. You can also manage expectations. And we'll talk a lot about that throughout the talk, about where some things we've seen expectation errors. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through. And you also can help by working with really supportive mentors. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean your PI, right? It does not necessarily mean your PI. They're very nice people. My PI, who I was a postdoc with, was a wonderful woman. That doesn't mean she could help me find the job that I wanted. So I needed mentors outside of her in order to make sure that I could make it into the career that I loved. You also should look at making sure you understand yourself and how you want to look at your careers. So I thought about the OITE blog as a place to do that with. Make sure you're talking with others, whether or not that means your spouse or your friends or your lab mates or research group mates or friends, just friends, or career counselors or therapists or whatever it is. Make sure you're talking with people because this is a very stressful time. And also seeking support in other resources. So I know many of you have joined us from other universities. You obviously got this from somebody else. And so when you think about that other mentor and that other person, think about who you got this email from to join us today and reach out to them as a person perhaps to talk to about being successful in this job hunt. One of the first parts about preparation really is understanding who you are. And we have a whole talk on this. This is, we call it career planning for scientists. But we're going to give you the highlights here. And it's understanding who you are, and what you love and what you hate. And the first thing here is understanding your interests, right? So what are your interests within the field? So what do you want to do, and what can you do? So sometimes what you can do isn't necessarily what you want to do, and sometimes what you want to do is something necessarily you can do. So you'll have to maybe either build some skill sets out, or also realize that you don't have to do everything that you're good at if you don't like it. A good example of that one is grant writing. I had my own money both as a graduate student and as a postdoc. I was pretty successful at getting grants. I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. So that wasn't an interest I had. Another one here is your personality and your learning style, understanding who you are and how you want to work with others. My personality is that I love to work with people. And so I needed a position that was going to give me the ability to work with people a little bit more. So that's one of the things I looked after. The next one here is work preferences and work values. How would you want to work in a big city or a small city, a large institution, a small institution, all those kind of work, a casual place or a more formal place. In New York City, I had a very formal office where I had to dress up every single day in a suit. And now at the NIH, it's much more of an academic environment and I can wear jeans to work. And so those kind of work styles and what's important to you. Do you have all the credentials in order to be a successful candidate for the position? And so do you need some volunteer experiences? We'll talk about that in a little bit, couple of extra slides. And then I think the other one here is the personal and geographical restrictions, right? So, and I see someone put here in the questions that, it's really hard when there's a two-body problem. And whether or not that two-body problem is 2 PhDs or a PhD and a lawyer or a PhD and a bus driver, I know a postdoc who was just like that. Finding this dual career route is really one of the more stressful parts of our lives. The other part about this personal question is how far do you want to live from family? My husband and I made the decision we were going to only live on this side of the Mississippi because that's where our family was. And going to the other side was just going to be too stressful for us. So that was some of the geographical restrictions. Some of you want to be close to family. Some of you want to be far from family. And that will influence the types of careers that you may want to go for. For example, if you're thinking about doing a science policy career down the road, the only places that science policy really exists is Washington, D.C. and the state capitals. And so if you don't want to live in one of those two types of places, science policy is going to be a very difficult job for you to navigate. So you kind of understand not only your personal, but also the career-related geographical restrictions that are out there. So if you need some more help here, I really highly recommend the MyIDP from Science Careers. It's a fantastic resource for you to help understand your career path and kind of understanding what you are and what kind of careers fit well. I'm going to put one caveat out there with the MyIDP. While I love it with all my heart, we as scientists tend to look at the output that it gives us, and it'll tell you, you should go do sales. And you get all really excited and go, oh, but wait, I don't like to do sales. And you forget to look at number 2 and number 3 on the list, which are probably very close and statistically significant. So make sure you're looking at that as a whole and not just the one career that it spits out at you. Many of us also have access to career counselors, and so it's definitely something you could go and someone you can go talk to who's a professional around this. somebody asked me a question, can you explain the two-body problem? I actually don't even want to call it a problem. It's a challenge, right? It's just something. It's you and your partner. It's not just for two people with dual, so I have a PhD and my husband has a PhD. So that traditional way of talking about the two-body challenge is that both of us need jobs and we both have PhDs. But I think the two-body challenge actually is anybody and a partner. It doesn't really matter what degrees the two people have. Okay, the career decision process. Are you guys familiar with that old food pyramid, right? Remember the food pyramid? The food pyramid, on the bottom of the food pyramid was whole grains and fruits and vegetables. And at the top of that food pyramid was fats and sugars, or I like to call them just donuts. And your job search, I want to relate that very similarly to the to the food pyramid. So the career decision process. So the first thing is, you have this self-assessment down here, understanding your skills, your values, and your interests. Then you start exploring some careers and what's out there. How do you get the credentials to be successful? You really start focusing in the next level here. And then eventually you start building resumes and getting out there in the world. Now, the reason I like to compare this to the food pyramid is that often down here in the bottom, those 4 to 6 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, how many of those are actually most of us getting? Yeah, right? How many of us get our 4 to 6 servings of vegetables a day, especially right now? Oh my gosh. I was doing pretty well when I was going to work and I could pack a salad for lunch and all the rest of that stuff. But now it gets really hard. I know those 4 to 6 fruits and vegetables are super important for me, but it doesn't mean I actually love them, right? Because you know what tastes better? Donuts at the top of this, right? So if all you're sending out is sending resumes and sending resumes and sending resumes, it's like all you're doing is eating donuts. And eventually you're going to get scurvy. And so my goal is that you can think down here towards the bottom of your career pyramid and build your skills, your self-assessment, understanding who you are and understanding what careers best fit you so that you can start, throwing the donuts of resumes out there. I don't want you guys to have career scurvy. I want you guys to actually really be an active participant in understanding your career process. So after you kind of figure out what you love and what you hate, the next part is understanding what's out there. And so there's all kinds of different careers out there. And I think in some ways it's almost overwhelming. And then the first slide I said, I searched the internet and then I go down the rabbit hole. I think this is where the rabbit hole can come. It's because we go out onto the internet and we start looking at different careers and we get all really excited. And then we can't remember why we started here. So there's academics and government and industry and nonprofit, both on the bench and off the bench careers. And so I got another poll for you because I love polls and it makes you guys more engaged. So I'm just kind of wondering, what kind of career are you guys thinking of? Are you thinking about a faculty position? Are you thinking about a government position, industry, nonprofit, or an academic non-faculty? So that would be like staff scientist or another postdoc or something like that. What are you guys thinking about here? Looks like most of you guys are doing industry. Oh, interesting. I am not surprised. It's fascinating watching this one, right? Because if you look at the statistics, UCSF did a fantastic research article about 5 or 6 years ago now. And it says when graduate students join PhD programs, about 80% of them want to go become an academic faculty member. By the time they're fifth-year graduate students, about only 20% of them want to become faculty members. So look, our statistics here are just about the same. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of things here. Next week on Tuesday, we're going to be doing an industry overview talk. So what careers are in industry and how do you get those? And then next week on Thursday, we're going to be doing a faculty job hunt search. And so we'll do that one next week. And then we're also going to do picking the perfect postdoc next week too, for those of you who are thinking about a postdoc position. So those will be up online probably tomorrow morning. Okay, so you got to understand what's kind of out there and the different careers that are there. And if you, again, would like a little bit more information about the types of careers that are out there, here's some resources that I really love. Number one is My IDP. We talked about that one. There's some really good books out there. Next Gen PhD, that's by Melanie Cinch. It's a fantastic book. Alternative Careers, For scientists, I wish you would call it something different, is by Cynthia Robbins Roth. It's a fantastic book. It's actually one of the ones that I used. Non-Traditional Careers for Scientists is by Krieger. It's a fantastic book. I like both of these. The alternative careers and non-traditional careers are nice ones because they give you like a day in the life of different types of career. And then the next one is Careers in Biotech and Pharma. That's by Toby Friedman. I don't remember if there's a D in the middle, if it's Freeman or Friedman. I like that book a lot because it goes through all the different sectors of careers that exist within industry. And I was shocked on how many there were. There's some really good websites out there. The websites that I do love are Science Careers again, Nature Careers. I don't work for science, I promise. That's a whole nother story. If we want to talk about that later on my job offer from Science Careers I turned down, we can do that later. The NIH Career Symposium. So that is always in May. This year it's going to be virtual. I put a link here and we'll send you the slides later because if you go to that link, you can see all the different programs for the last 12, 13 years. And there's also a write-up of every single panel that we've ever done. And so you can go and you can read about all those different things on your leisure. Okay, and lots more. Your own universities have lots of stuff, etc. Panels, going to panels are great. Panels are great. I've seen more professional societies do panels at their annual meetings, and I think that would be fantastic as well as your graduate and postdoc office. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and take and look at the questions. We will be sharing the links to the webinars next week. We haven't even set them up yet. So however you found about today, you'll hear about again. All right. So somebody said, we'll get to that one later. Show the full results of the poll. Oh, I thought I was. I'll get back to that. Okay. All right. Great. I think I got everything here. Finding the right words when job searching. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Like, oh, the keywords for the job? Yep, I'll get to that. Hold on. Patience, Danielson. Okay. One of the things about job searches for scientists is we are used to this academic job search. Whether or not you want to be a faculty member or not, this is what you've always seen. Right, so when we are going to hire a new faculty member in our department as a graduate student, right, this is the thing we see. In August to October, you start applying. And then in January and February, oh my gosh, it's so much later, you start interviewing. And then in March and April, you get a second interview. In April, you'll accept, and then August, you move. The whole timeline's about a year. For those of us who love just plan ahead, this is great. I got to tell you, though, this is not what normal is. Normal is this. You apply any month because jobs are opening all along the way. About a month after you apply, you'll probably interview. About 2 weeks after that, you will accept the position if it's offered to you. And then the next week, and then 1 to 2 months after that, you'll move. The whole timeline can be about 2 months. So it's really, really short. So if you're going to be a faculty member, any kind of faculty member, whether it's a research faculty or a teaching faculty or anything, that whole timeline is 1 year. Anything but faculty member can go as short as 2 months, but as long as, or much, much longer. If it's the federal government, my God, it takes forever if you want to get a job in the federal government. It's usually about 6 to 7 months if you're lucky. On average, though, this is a neat statistic that we have found, is for every $10,000 you want to make, it takes about 1 month of job searching. So for those of you who have PhDs in the room, the average salary for a starting PhD is about $90,000. That means on average, it's going to take 9 months to find a job, okay? So it doesn't mean some of you will be shorter, it means some of you will be longer, but on average, it's about 1 month for every $10,000 you want to make. All right, so here's a great job search timeline that we want. And so one thing, let me see if I can show the polls. Let me open it up, and I'm going to open this one, and I want to say, when would you like your new job? I'm going to launch this one. And for some reason, it is just saying it's distributing. It's not saying, in the past, it has said what everyone else is saying. So I'm just going to have to read it to you guys. It says about 30% of you are looking in the next 3 to 6 months. About 20% of you are 6 months to 12 months. And about 45% of you are over a year from now. That's not too bad. That's not too bad at all. That's about what I would expect for this, is that some of you are like immediate and some of you are like, I'm planning ahead for the future. So I have some timelines for both of you, and we're going to condense the timeline for some of those of you who are in that 3 to 6 month poll, okay? So from 18 to 24 months, so that's, you know, a year and a half to 2 years, it's really time to start solidifying your career direction. So if you haven't quite figured out your skills, your values, your interests, and what careers are out there, that's the stuff you can dabble in that first 18 to 24 months. 13 to 18 months, about a year and a half from the point, this is where you start developing really good networking context, and we're going to talk about networking next, developing job search materials. If you're going international, look at this website, jobera.com. It's a fantastic resource for those of you who are pondering careers outside of the United States. And also getting experience. So in order to be, like for my job now, I had to start a postdoc program, get involved in the National Postdoc Association, and do a couple of other things. I had to get experience to show I knew what I want. When, as a hiring manager now, I get applications from people who have never done anything in the postdoc sphere, and they don't even make it past my round one. They could be the most amazing scientist ever, but if they don't have skill sets that I want, I'm not going to pull them in for an interview. About 12 months from the end of training, it's time to finish up and start speeding up your focusing on your search. And 6 to 9 months from now, from your end of your training, you're out there, right? You're 100% out there. Now, for those of you who are in the 3 to 6 month category, I hope at this point you already have figured out what your career direction is. And you're just down here in this ramping it up time where you're really building your network and things like that. If you haven't yet done that, one of the things I highly recommend is that you should be talking to someone in your network at least once a week in that if you're in that 3 to 6 month period, once a week or twice a month at the minimum, you should be building some networking contacts in order to help shepherd your job hunt along. Okay. Somebody asked me here for shifting my timeline due to the pandemic. A senior postdoc wants a faculty job, but we're facing massive hiring freezes. You know, that is a really good question, and I don't think we fully understand what's happening now. We don't know how long these hiring freezes are going to be for. We don't know how long, if it's just temporary until this all kind of passes over. So what I would do instead is build your networking contacts. Because I imagine come fall, we'll start doing interviews for faculty. The faculty positions will still be there. The industry positions will still be there. You know, out of all the industries that are going to come out decent out of this, it's going to be science because we're the ones trying to save the day, right? So be prepared and realize that the freezes that you're hearing about now may not be the freezes that are there in 3 to 6 months. I'm hoping that's crystal ball. But I'm really hoping that we're not going to see a long-term shift, especially for faculty hiring. I don't imagine that that's going to happen. The other thing, next thing is how in the world do you find stuff? How do you find institutions? How do you find things? And you guys are asking lots of questions on networking. I see that coming through. Where the next segment of the talk is how do you network? So hold on to those in case I don't get to those. So picking institutions, that could be geographical. So if you have a geographical component, one of the things I really recommend is to put a pin down, how far you're willing to drive and what's in the area, those kind of things. Academic, company, and organization websites. A lot of times we want to go to these third-party websites, Nature, Science, Idealist, Indeed, Chronicle of Higher Education, Higher Ed Jobs. Dropout Club may not be one you're familiar with, but that's another good one, etc. These third-party websites are fantastic, but one of the things that you probably have noticed is that nobody has all the same jobs, right? So sometimes the jobs are are posted one place but not another place, and that gets really, really frustrating. And so I recommend definitely, if there's a particular couple of companies, academic institutions, or organizations that you're really interested in, make sure you're going to their websites and looking at their career stuff so that you can download jobs directly from their website, because they always will post it at their website. It costs them money to go to the third-party websites. So sometimes they go and sometimes they don't. So that's one of the reasons you see things at different third-party websites. Conferences are fantastic. So conferences are a great place to go. So if you're going to a conference, which, God dang, when are we ever going to go to a conference again? Oh my goodness. Oh, sorry. The next time you go to a conference, talk to everybody, right? Let them know you're on the job market, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, regional hiring places. So I wanted to show you, again, I'm from Maryland, but these things exist throughout the country. I wanted to show you two websites that I think are fantastic, okay? So number one, I hope if you guys can't see this, let me know, okay? This is from the state of Maryland. So this is maryland.gov. And so maryland.gov has a great website. They then have pinned all the different jobs, all the different organizations that are in the state of Maryland. So then you can hover over these things and see what jobs are there. The other thing, the other place that has already pinned everything geographically is in our area, it's the local biotech association. So here in Maryland, it's called BioBuzz. And so you always just have to Google your favorite state, Biotech Association. And then you can come in and then you can see all these different companies, and then it'll tell you kind of what they do and lead you to their websites. So especially if you have a kind of geographical span to it, this is a great way to kind of start, is to look at these types of maps that definitely exist all over the internet. Okay, so there's two. So regional hiring trends. This website here, my career counselor found, and it's a place that is looking for hiring freezes. So if you want to see who is frozen and who's not frozen, it's kind of like a place that people are putting in what they've heard from different companies. It's humongous though, and so I found it a little bit challenging to use, but I'm offering it to you guys for as a place to look, especially during this time period. Somebody asked me here about Glassdoor. I don't usually look through Glassdoor for different companies. I use Glassdoor only for salary stuff. Glassdoor is a nice resource, but it's kind of like Yelp, where the only people that are going into Glassdoor are usually people that are unhappy. The other thing that with Glassdoor is when somebody goes in and puts in their salary, it doesn't account for how long they've been at that job. So it could say a scientist one and it's making, $90,000, but that person has been there for 12 years or something like that, right? So you kind of have to take Glassdoor with a grain of salt. A better way actually to get salary information is through informational interviews, which we're going to talk about in a couple of slides. And through informational interviews, you can really understand, you can ask people like, what's a typical starting salary for this type of position? I know some of you are having audio problems. I don't have any control over that, and I can't do anything with it. I'm sorry. Okay, networking. Let's talk about networking. I have a fun poll for networking. Let's see what this one looks like. What is your comfort level with networking? Do you love it, or do you absolutely, positively hate it? This is mine. I love people. It's okay. I just don't know where to start. Or do I have to? All right. So we got almost 75% of you are saying you just don't know where to start. I get it. It's really tough. And as scientists, this is not something we actually talk about a lot. Networking is not as difficult as I think we tend to make it out. So it's really just having conversations with people and kind of understanding what they do and how they do it. We network all the time, and we don't consider it networking. If you're asking for a new restaurant recommendation, that's networking. If you're asking for a new physician, that's networking. So when think about it that way, it doesn't sound so skeezy. I think one of the things people find with networking and worry about with networking is that it sounds skeezy to them, right? That they're asking for something and nobody has anything to give in return. And I would caution you that that's not true. Here's a couple of things with networking that I'm hoping that I can give you is that you never know what you have to give to the conversation. A couple of years ago, somebody really wanted to go work in at a nonprofit place that provided grants. So it actually happened to be the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. And at the time, I knew somebody who worked there. And so I connected this postdoc with the person at JDRF. And my friend at JDRF said, well, what does she do? And I'm like, oh, she's a stem cell biochemist or biologist. And she's like, oh my God, I need one of those. So if this postdoc had never reached out and asked me to help introduce her to somebody, she would have never known that they were looking for somebody with their skill set. So don't be afraid to go out there. Another interesting part with networking and getting more information is don't be afraid to go and ask people about their lives. People love to talk about themselves. And so they'll probably be able to help you. And they realize what it was like to be a postdoc. And so, or a graduate student or a postbac or whatever you are, right? They remember that time period in their life and when they were trying to make the decision. So they're usually very happy to talk to people. The other thing is when you send them an email, if they don't respond, you should send another email in 1 week. If they don't respond again, 2 weeks later, send the last and final email. If you continue to send emails after that, it kind of looks like you're stalking them. But usually the first email may have gotten lost in their inbox, so don't feel bad emailing them once or twice again. It's perfectly fine. And if they never respond to you, don't worry about it because they're never going to remember. And so just go on to the next person, right? So just continue to ask more and more people. So networking is a great way to do this. And you guys all have really, really great networks. And I think this is one thing we forget about. We forget about our whole group, right? So the first is the people in your research group. So if you ask somebody, hey, do you know anybody who works at Pfizer? Maybe somebody actually does. And so it's asking the right questions. And then the next level up is those people in your scientific life. So that's people in your department, people in your branch or your institute. It's the people that are kind of closer, the people you see at seminars and collaborators, people that are kind of closer. The next group up is folks in the scientific community. These are the ones that it starts to feel kind of weird going to because, the people in your scientific life, if you ask them, hey, do you know anybody who works in the government? It feels like you're just having a conversation with a friend. This folks in the scientific community are people you meet at conferences or people that you cold call, and it's perfectly fine to cold email someone. So they're higher up, not higher up like professionally, but, further out from your core group of people. And then the last is this folks in your community, right? You never know who people are going to know. It could be somebody from your house of worship. It could be somebody from your neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. I often tell the story, some of you may have heard this one, of when I wanted to leave my postdoc, I really thought I wanted to go work in industry. Specifically, I wanted to work at Pfizer, which was at the time in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So I asked my family, my dad is a mailman, my mom teaches second grade, my brother teaches special education, and my sister-in-law is a secretary. I asked all of them who could help, right? Did anybody know anybody who worked at Pfizer? So here you go, guys. I want to know, who do you think is going to win? Who's going to have the Pfizer connection? My dad, who's a mailman, my mom, who's a teacher, my brother, or my sister-in-law? All right, got about 3% of you voting right now. Yeah, you guys are funny. My mom never wins. My dad always wins this. So it's like 45% here, my dad, the mailman, and 26% my sister-in-law. It actually is not my dad. That would actually be mail fraud. He's not allowed to do that. Although we did used to deliver to a couple of Tigers, the Major League Baseball players. That's what he used to be on his route. It is not my mom. My mom does not win, although she could have, right? Maybe one of her parents could have been working at Pfizer. Same thing with my brother. It actually ends up being my sister-in-law, who's a secretary at a law firm. And, you wouldn't think that she would win, but she went in and talked to all the lawyers, asked anybody if they knew anybody that worked at Pfizer, and lo and behold, someone did. And you can see I don't work at Pfizer, right? Well, you can't see me, but you can see I don't work at Pfizer. I talked to the person who I made the connection with, and he said, "Oh, don't apply here. We're closing this facility down in 6 months." There was all kinds of jobs on their website, all kinds of jobs that were open, and I was applying for and sending my resume into the online black hole of doom. If I had not gone and talked to these people, I would have spent all this time thinking that job was going to come through, and maybe even landing a job and 6 months later being out of a position. So don't discount people who shouldn't know anything about science. It's just asking the question, do you know anybody who works in industry, is a little bit vague. Do you know anybody who works at a particular company, is a little bit closer. You should be prepared to talk to them, telling them a little bit who you are, having some open-ended questions ready, some talking points, and informational interviews. These are the key, folks. They help you provide great information, strong applications. You do not ask for a job. You're asking for information. I actually think the protocol has 4 goals. The present, tell me about your job. Tell me about your current position, right? So what do you love about your job? What do you hate about your job? Can you tell me what's on your to-do list, both long-term and short-term projects? Where do you see what's happening next in your position? The next one is past. So what made you a competitive candidate? How did you get into this position? Who did you network with to get this type of position? Future, long-term opportunities in the field. Where do you see yourself going? And advice. So can you give me any other people I should talk to? Would you give me feedback on my resume? Oh man, that's an amazing one, because number one, it gets their resume in their hands. Number two, you're getting feedback from people who are actually supposed to be reading your resumes. What professional societies, if you were me, what should I do? Do you have any insights into possible positions? So it's really, this is the protocol for how to do it. And so I have a challenge for you, and here's how you can do it. It's just sending people an email at this particular point. So dear Dr. So-and-so, I'm currently a blah, blah, blah. I'm hoping to talk a little bit about your career. You can put in a little bit more information here about who you are and what you're looking for. And you have 15 minutes to spare for a telephone call. I got to tell you, Scooby-Doos, this is a perfect time to do informational interviews. Everyone's at home and has a little bit more time to do these types of things. So I challenge you in the next month or so to do 3 informational interviews using this kind of template for the email. You can find people's emails through LinkedIn, alumni associations, through your PIs. You can ask your PI, would you mind introducing me to someone? All of those types of things are great ways to find people's email. And also, if you can just find their name, you can type in their name, like Lori Conlon, email. And I guarantee you can find an email that way. So last, I wanted to point out a couple of things. So the first is, how do you apply for positions? Honestly, guys, 90% of you will get jobs through networking. They help you to get that potential openings, to let you know sometimes it's the underground, untapped network. You absolutely need to be networking in order to feel really successful at this job hunting thing. It's still frustrating, but it helps a lot. Traditional online applications, about 20% of you will get this. I call this the online black hole of doom. This is, I'm assuming you haven't talked to anyone. Even if you're talking to people, you eventually will have to put your resume online, but only online applications will only land you a job for about 20% of you. About 1% of you will get a job from career fairs. They are a really great place to look at companies and see what they are, and who knows what's going to happen to career fairs in the current landscape. They're a crummy place to actually get a job. Less than 1% of people who go to those career fairs will actually get a job out of that job fair. I can tell you stories about those later. And recruiters are an interesting thing. It's interesting because people think that recruiters are working for them. They're not. They're working for the company. They get paid by the company. You should never, ever pay a recruiter. Okay, so I just want to put that out there. You should never be giving money to a recruiter. If you have to give money to a recruiter, they're not the right recruiter for you. Sometimes recruiters are called recruiters, but they're just outsourced HR. It's a really interesting component, and a lot of times I'm seeing more recruiters. It looks like recruiters are contacting you through LinkedIn. My jury's still out on how successful people are with those, but it's a great tool for you to use. Just don't let that be your only tool. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Okay, so we're going to not talk about job search documents today, but I have a lot of stuff out here it's actually not, it's going to be the week of April 27th. We'll do a seminar on resumes, CVs, and cover letters. But honestly, guys, if you want to look now, we have an entire seminar about CVs, resumes, what's the difference on our YouTube page, so you can go look at that. And I have 2 guides off of the OITE website, the guide to resumes and CVs, and also the guide to cover letters that you guys can look to other times. The last part about being prepared for a job search is the interview. Know the common questions and practice. Okay, so the YouTube page, again, we have some archived videos, and this one specifically links to also a video that has a ton of questions in it. And then the blog has some great information, so I have some there. And then Monster or Indeed.com, I don't remember which one it is nowadays, has great references on how to ask questions and stuff like that. So there's lots of really yummy things out there about interviews. This is tough, right? It's really tough to find a job. It's hard to get started. You don't know exactly where to start. If you don't know where to start, the first thing I would say is do one informational interview to kind of figure out what that career is and if you really want to go after that. Your job with informational interviews is to, as much as you want to find a position, it's to take things off and say, oh God, please no, I don't want to do that. It takes a lot of time. Finding a full-time job is almost a full-time job. You have to make each application match the job ad. You have to do research. You have to do your real job, your science as well. It seems to be really disheartening. It's like a black hole. You don't get any feedback along the process of are you close? Are you not close? We don't get anything like that. And this also might be the first time you've ever applied for a real job. And so we have this great video on our YouTube page about building resilience. Okay, so top 10 tips. We're going to end with this. Start early. Takes a long time. Network with everybody, not just the people with power. I actually recommend, it's called the Peer Plus 2 network. People who are about 2 to 3 years ahead of you, those are the best people to talk to. Tailor your documents for computer filters. My career counselor, Amanda, put this one in of a great place to look for these computer filters. Be a perfectionist with your job search documents. Spelling errors will get it thrown into the trash, I promise you. But don't be a perfectionist for which jobs you apply for. You only need about 60 to 70% of the qualifications. If you got that, go ahead and apply. Always follow up a thank you note. Have an online presence. Now, this is specifically for non-faculty people. If you want a faculty job, go put in a LinkedIn, but don't work very hard on it. All the rest of you, go make a really awesome LinkedIn. And I'm working right now to put our last week's LinkedIn video up on YouTube. It should be there by the end of the week. Exude confidence. Don't take rejections personally. It's really, really tough. Finding a job is really hard. And do something small every day. We actually recommend that 5% of your time is spent on this kind of stuff. So kind of like do something every day to kind of put yourself out there. I have more resources here. Our YouTube channel, I've talked about a couple of times. These are some great blogs off of our website, and we'll be sending you these slides probably later on tonight or early tomorrow. You can find them in the handout section down here if you want to download them. They're in the handout. It looks like a little document button. You can download them yourself, but you'll also get a copy of them by email. And with that, let's see what kind of questions you guys have, because I know that I probably missed something that was really important. Oh, one person I know asked really early, I know I don't want to be a faculty member. Do I need to do a postdoc? That's totally a personal opinion. If you can network and build your credentials through graduate school, you absolutely can go get a job right away. You don't need that postdoc. Some of us may need that postdoc as a buffer time to kind of like settle, and that can even be in the same lab you're already in. Some of us need that postdoc time. If you want to go into industry R&D, you may need a postdoc just to be competitive with everybody else who is in the candidate pool. If everybody else has a postdoc and you don't, you're not as competitive as them. All right. How do you choose between a sweet spot between when you start applying and when you envision you want to leave your current position? That's a really good question. And that's hard to know depending on what exactly you want to go after. I think I'm going to do for a nonprofit job, right? So, that can be, say I got a job and then all of a sudden 2 months later they want me. it may be earlier than I want to go. So I would do it no more than where you're 6 months from comfortable of leaving. Benefit of working in the government, that's a whole nother talk. It's very different working in the government. I'm not going to say there's a lot of benefits from being in the government. I had better benefits in the nonprofit. And so I think nowadays government jobs are not, don't get me wrong, I love my job, but I think each one of them has pros and cons. And maybe we'll develop a blog about that. I hope I proved to you how to build your networking. I definitely talked about this one. How do you reach out to your people in your network 3 to 6 months prior to your training? What do you say? That's a good question. I think what I would say is, I've enjoyed my postdoc, and it's time for me to start looking at my next position. I'm looking for new jobs, and I'm hoping to reconnect or to have a conversation with you, so that I am super prepared to go out on the job hunt. All right. Yeah. So for those of you who are on J-1 visas or who are not United States citizens, one of the questions here is it possible to get a job in industry? I'm going to be honest with you. It's really, really, really hard. It's really hard. There's not a lot of H-1B visas. There's not a lot of opportunities. And so you really need to network so that somebody within the company is vouching for you and is saying, hey, we should really hire this person and go after a really awesome visa for them. And so networking becomes even more important for those of you who have visa issues. It is much more challenging. K through 12, someone's asked about K through 12 education. Absolutely. That's a great career path. There's definitely, I don't know where you are, Tomas. I don't know if you're here in the Bethesda area or not, but we every year have someone who has gone into K through 12 education at our career symposium. And they all say it's a fantastically satisfying career. It will depend on your state on if you need to go get certifications, and it'll depend on if you want to work at a private or a public institution. And so there's a lot of things like that that are out there. So I hope that answered your question. It's possible. People love it. It's not for everybody. How do you know what industry jobs to apply for? We'll talk about, I encourage you to join us next week for the industry seminar, because that is an interesting question, because one of the hardest parts about it is that every company calls that entry-level position something different. And I find that super frustrating. Okay, you definitely should use your PI's connections, but you shouldn't necessarily only use their connections. Cold calling people is perfectly fine. Again, remember, if they don't answer you, they're not going to remember you. And so don't worry about it. So when doing a postdoc where there is no definite contract regarding when you can leave, and given the short academic time duration from interview to the move, how do you have a conversation with your boss? Alrighty, how do you let your boss know it's time to go? Well, I usually say you just have to rip the Band-Aid off. You know, your job as a postdoc is to get a job. That period. That's your job. I mean, yeah, science. But your job is to get a job at the end of this. So your PI has to know that eventually you're going to be leaving them. That said, this conversation usually strikes fear in all of us. Understand that fear is normal, and that having the conversation, if you start having the conversation early and often that, you're looking for this type of job or that type of job, it doesn't become a surprise. Some of us don't feel comfortable doing that. It also may be if you are one who, once you come back into work, you can go into their office and say, I have had a lot of chance to think about it, and this is what I think I would like to do next. I'd love for your support with this, but I understand that's not as easy. So there's no good answer to this because each one of you has a different situation. I was able to tell my boss a year ahead of time. Other people, when I left my job at the New York Academy of Sciences, I didn't tell them till I walked out the door. So it really depends on the situation, and there's no real good answer for that one. This person says, I can't believe networking is 90%. It's so much work. I know. It doesn't always have to be by talking. You can also do some of it by email, but it doesn't always have to be strangers. And it doesn't have to be hour-long conversations. It can be 15 minutes here and there, and you'll still get the information you need. Okay, I get messages through recruiters to LinkedIn. Do you recommend to reply to them and ask them about the job application? Maybe. It depends on if the job looks interesting or not. All right, once we have made contact with new people, how should we go maintaining contact and finding further jobs without overwhelming, they feel so overwhelmed with this whole thing. I know, it's so tough. So part of it is don't feel afraid to contact somebody a year later and say, I hope you remember me, we talked last year. You don't have to keep up every single conversation. All right, hope got that one. How do you know if you're a perfect fit? How do we know they're a perfect fit? It's that, talk to a career counselor. I think that would help. That would help. Talk to your friends, talk to your faculty members, talk to people who've gone into industry. Make sure you get it. It's like a data project, right? Make sure you have enough data project to figure out which career best fits you. All right. Is industry a career for wildlife ecology? Sure. I just don't know where. I'm sorry, Amy. I wish I did. How do you find a postdoc job? We're going to do that next time. Positions in nonprofit organizations, the best website for that is the Idealist website. That's the best place, as well as each one of their individual websites. Another really interesting tip for nonprofit organizations that I have is GuideStar.org. I think it is GuideStar.org. GuideStar.org is an organization that you can sift by state, by what they do, so science or non-science and stuff like that. It's where you would look to see whether or not you wanted to donate to that nonprofit, but it's also a nice way to think to find what nonprofits are in that sphere. All right. We're going to talk about CVs and resumes next time. That's a whole nother talk. Industry postdoc versus an academic postdoc, if you wanted to do industry later. They're both good. Both of them are very good. The industry postdoc gives you a little bit of industry-based experience, but as long as you're preparing yourself for an industry career, you can go to an academic postdoc and be very successful navigating into industry. So what about, you're not really 100% sure whether you want to do an academic career, but you don't know because the type of mentorship that you're currently getting makes it look like that's not the type of career that you want. Dude, I get that one. I think part of it is to realize that we don't often become our parents either, right? And you can eventually develop your own research group however you want to develop your research group and create a culture that best fits you, not the culture that you grew up in. And so I hope that if that's where you're going with that question, create the culture you want, not the culture that has to exist, so to speak. All right, so taking my OPT, that's a nice one. A year of OPT, go to industry. Go to industry, go to industry. If that's what you want down the road, go to industry. Use your OPT to go to industry. If that's your lifetime goal is to get into industry, use your OPT during that time period. Okay, good opportunities to job opportunities. I would say that, if you're doing an informational interview, I would ask about potential job opportunities at the very end. And I would say, do you know of any potential opportunities that would fit my skill set? That's the way I would ask to do that. All right, so speaking of foreigners, how challenging is it to land jobs in policy and government? Government, very, very difficult. Policy, a little bit better. I do recommend looking at nonprofits. I have a lot of friends who have moved into nonprofits. In fact, this year during the Career Symposium, we're going to highlight a foreign fellow who navigated into science policy. So do you have to have experience directly in the scientific field? What if you did your postdoc someplace else? Oh, perfectly fine. As long as you can prove to them that you have the skills in order to be successful, it doesn't matter. You don't have to stay in the same field, right? So for example, as a protein biochemist who really started kinetics, I can go to a broad level of field. I don't always have to go into restriction enzyme biochemistry. I would just sell my skills as a kineticist instead of as a restriction enzyme biochemist. All right, K through 12 jobs are posted usually at the websites of the different school districts. So that's where I would look for those types of things. If you're looking for science education and outreach jobs, those are mostly through nonprofits. So figure out which nonprofits do science education and outreach and then reach out directly to them. So can you leave as a postdoc, can I leave at any time? Yes, you can. Now, that said, most postdocs give about 1 to 2 months notice. Industry will wait for you typically 1 to 2 months, not much longer than that. Nonprofits won't last much, maybe shorter, maybe longer. But 1 to 2 months is typical what most people give as notice. Grad student looking for a postdoc, hot dog, right in the paper. About 9 to 12 months from finishing. It is not too early. This is the perfect time to start looking out for grads. I actually had my postdoc set up a whole year in advance. It's because they know when a postdoc is leaving and then they'll hold that position for you. So I would highly recommend starting now. Okay, government positions have asked for postdoc of X years of experience. What would an entry-level position into government positions be other than a postdoc? So honestly, it's very difficult. You can look for program analyst is what I would recommend. What kinds of jobs did you look for in nonprofit? Nonprofit are typically non-bench jobs doing administrative type work within the scientific realm. Think about running conferences, doing science policy. That's also editing, communications, stuff like that. All right. How do you find a mentor? You just ask. Tristan, one of the things with this is I think a lot of times we're trying to put our mentors up on a pedestal too much, and it's just forming connections with people. So if you find someone who you think is cool, don't say, hey, would you like to be my mentor? But just ask them questions and then build that relationship. And I think a lot of times that really helps. There is a national network through the National Research Mentoring Network, NRMN. NRMN.net has a national network, and I do recommend looking at them. I don't know how active they currently are, though. If I got an interview 2 months ago, can I reapply if the job is still out there? Probably. Yeah, sure. Why not? Who knows what's happening now? All right. So next week's stuff, it'll all be posted on our website, which is training.nih.gov. Oh my gosh, a PhD student in Paris. Oh, bonjour, comment ça va? Can you aim for an industry postdoc in the US, or is it too hard? I don't know the answer to that. You probably have to reach out to the industry postdoc organizations. I know Novartis has a really good one, and Genentech has a really good one. And maybe you can look and see if they have contact information there. I don't have the answer for you. Désolé. That's about the extent of my French, by the way. Combining and finishing experiments and papers and applying for jobs. Dude, that is rough. I get that one, man. So here's what I recommend is that you set aside a certain portion of each day that is your time period that you block out for doing job hunting. And it only needs to be an hour to an hour and a half per day. Once you get into the rhythm of things and you have some resumes and some things built, it's not as hard as in the beginning. But I would block off an hour to an hour and a half a day for you to email people, make sure your resume is up to snuff. And some days you'll have more time and some days you'll have less time. But if you block that time off, it's really helpful. Careers in tech transfer, somebody's asked for. Absolutely. Look at these two different organizations, AUTM, which is the Association of University Tech Managers, and the other one's gone. Sorry, but AUTM will get you. Also, the American Chemical Society has been offering a lot of free webinars on tech transfer careers, so you may want to look at them too. My friends keep sending me positions to apply for, but I don't feel like changing jobs. At the same time, maybe it's a sign. Any thoughts? I saw the sign. Yes. Your friends are just looking out for you. If you don't really want to change jobs now, think about what they're sending you and the types of positions that they're sending you. And are there things that you love about them and things that you hate about them? And realize that your friends love you and they just want to let you know that they're thinking about you. All right, you can't move, but you're not in a job-dense geographical area. Be more open with the types of jobs that you can actually take. Be more and realize that you may have to take a stepping stone position and not your final position. Staff scientist jobs, any recommendations for that? Network. So staff scientist jobs are not often posted. They're often done through networking, so that's what I would highly recommend there. Other than postdoc associations, what experience would I value? I'm not a recruiter, I'd be a hiring manager. I would value someone who has done more than just pipette. So I want to see that you've taken a leadership role within your research group. You know, you started a journal club, you started an awards program. That's the kind of things I want to see. Okay, got it. I got 3 more. Government jobs, well, there's a YouTube video about that on our website, 2 YouTube videos. And so I highly recommend looking at those. Oh, yes, 80,000hours.org is a great resource as well. All right, can a postback also leave for a new position at any time? Yes. All right, does nonprofit hires with visa? Some. You have to actually go in and ask them. Not all will, because it costs them too much money. But they are cap unlimited. Right? Yeah, yeah, that's the right word. All right. I hope 5th-year graduate student pursuing a tenure-track faculty position. Awesome. Go find a postdoc. How do you format an email to a potential postdoc faculty mentor? Jaketo, next week we're going to do Finding the Perfect Postdoc on Wednesday. So please join us for that one. Or if you can't, the seminar is also posted on our YouTube page. It'll talk to you all about that kind of stuff. Oh, good. Somebody told me NRMN is very active. I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you for putting that in. Oh, it's like my French. Thanks. All right. I've got a couple more. Job searches for lab managers. Again, reach out directly to PIs because they don't necessarily always post them, and it's hard to figure out where they're posting them. It may only be on the university websites. Okay. The Career Symposium is absolutely available for everybody outside of the NIH. Every year it is. This year is as well. It's going to be May 8th this year, but it's all virtual. So watch the www.training.nih.gov for more information, and we'll launch that there. How do you network from quarantine? I'll take this for my last question. Perfect, absolute perfect time to do it. Send people emails and just pick up the phone and do some Zooms. Zoom calls, whatever your favorite online platform is, it's a fantastic time to do it because people are less busy. So spend your time networking. Is what I hopefully have convinced you is a worthwhile part of your day. Well, I appreciate you guys all spending time with me today. It's been a lot of fun. I'm really sorry about all the technical difficulties we had in the beginning, so thanks for holding on. My website, my email is here. Our website is here. We're really happy to have so many of you from around the world join us. And watch training.nih.gov for next week's stuff. There's a whole website there for things that we're doing for both the inside and outside community. So enjoy that. And I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Thursday. All right. Bye, everybody. I'm going to end the webinar now. Oh, my God, I'm tired. Oh.